Surprise, surprise, it's basketball season almost around the corner, and as we released yesterday, and we've hit a little bit of bad luck here with a couple of guys, and it makes it a little difficult in some ways to kind of figure out where we're at, but at the other side of it, it's not a ton different. We did not plan on playing with two bigs this year. We plan on playing with two guards, two swings, and a big guy, and that was the way it was going to be. It still is going to be that way, but right now we're down a couple of big guys, and is it concerning? Yeah, but I think with the culture we've built, that's been passed down from a lot of players. I think we'll deal with it. We'll handle it, and somehow, some way, it's going to work out. It's been a program that we've emphasize our guards and our wings a lot, and they're going to get even more emphasis, at least in the next 6 weeks for sure, and who knows how much longer. But with the schedule, there's only a few schools, if any, that have accomplished what we've accomplished in the last 4 or 5 years. We've won 27 games in each of those 5 years. I think we're the only school in the country that has done that. And our record of NCAA appearances is still the same. It's not changing, it's not going down. It's something I'm very proud of, and I'm very proud in continuing the 19 seasons to 20. Consistency is what I said all along would be the mark of our program. Whether we can stay consistent over a period of time. We are doing that, but we're just in the midst of doing that. It's hopefully going to grow from here. The schedule in November. Will be brutal for me. It'll be brutal for those of you that are following, and it's going to be brutal for our players. But it's 13,600 miles in 22 days, and that is taking on something that we've never really taken on before. With everybody's 1 and 2 ranked team in the country being Duke and Kentucky, and we're going to play both of them. The fact that we're playing a good Arizona team, possibly a good Louisville team, Baylor, and who knows who else will rear their heads before we're done. We've never had a November where we've played 3 or 4 top teams, opponents, and this year we're going to probably have a minimum of 4. I don't know what that means. It means that we're going to find out early exactly where we are, like we always do. The travel makes it a little more brutal. A little more concerning with the number of young guys. As always, schedules are made in advance enough where, would I do something this crazy if I knew Deontay was leaving early? Probably not. But at the same time, I think it's an incredible opportunity, and our freshmen have been every bit of billing so far. We're going to rely on some of our returning players. Definitely, as of right now, anyway, it'll be Harris, it'll be McQuaid, it'll be Tom. Hopefully we'll get some guys back, but if not, we're going to rely a lot on our freshmen. I always thought our 4 freshmen would play some minutes, extended minutes. Now they're going to play a lot. But I'd expect by the end of the year, those freshmen are not only going to be very good, but it's going to make us a better team. And if we have to withstand whatever happens to us early. When I say that, I mean sometimes if you lose a couple games and you let people get to you and you let things get to you, it can go one way or the other. I don't know them well enough yet to know which way, how they'll handle it, but I'm not really worried about it. I've been very impressed with them so far. And they've picked up things quickly, but not quickly like last year's team. And I only say that because last year's team was the exact opposite. It was a very veteran team that had been around. And these freshmen have bought into the culture here. I appreciate what our seniors and juniors have done for them. And even yesterday we had Costello around, and everybody's trying to help everybody, and that's been great. But The four freshmen in Bridges, I got a blue-collar superstar. There aren't many blue-collar superstars. I've been very impressed by the way he's handled the media. I've been very impressed by the way he's handled his teammates, his academics. He's brought a lot of things to the game. He's an incredible athlete. I mean, right up there with a Jay Rich, who probably came in at 190, and he comes in at 230. He's a little better with the ball than I thought. Shoots it a little better than I thought. Like all freshmen, our biggest fear is, can he pick up the defensive concepts and play defense at a Big Ten level, or as we're going to find early, on a national level. But he's been impressive. In Langford, not quite the highlight reel player that Bridges is, as far as up and down, but a very solid, steady player. Maybe the best defensive player of the freshmen so far. Long, solid 6'5", long arms, athletic, very intelligent player. Another area that Bridges, I think, is pretty good at. He really sees the court well. What I do like about Josh and Cassius especially is those two guys came from winning state championships. So they know how to win, and I think he's good. He was a 5-time Alabama Class 3A Player of the Year. In Alabama, you can play in 8th grade or 7th grade or 6th grade, I don't know. Probably like the UP. You can just play them, man. Whenever they're there, you play them. And he did an incredible job at the school he was at, and I think is going to be, if I can get him over being too much demanding of himself, he's a guy that puts a lot of pressure on himself, and sometimes I tell him, hey, in baseball, if you strike out 7 out of the 10 times, or if you fly out, or if you don't get hits, you can be an all-star. In basketball, you're still going to miss half your shots, and you'd be considered a star. Josh still struggles with that a little bit, but what a nice problem to have. In Cassius Winston, I said when he was a sophomore in high school, Dwayne Stevens and I were just talking about it up in the office. I said I thought he could be the best passer since Magic Johnson in this state, and 3 weeks of practice or 2 weeks of practice has not changed my opinion of him in one way or another. And there's a uniqueness to all three of these guys, especially Cassius and Miles, that their offhand is as good as their strong hand. I mean, Miles shoots it left, but he rights and throws a baseball or a football right-handed. He's very good either way. Either take a pick. It's either amphibious like it is in the UP or ambidextrous like it is down here, but one way or another he can use both hands. And so I think Cassius is in that same mold. He's not a lightning quick guard like Tum, but he has such a great capability of, the NBA calls it pace. He plays with great pace. He can change speeds. He's a little quicker than I thought. He's got himself in, I think, the best shape of his life. He can use his left hand as well as his right hand. Not quite like Neitzel where he can shoot shots from there, but he can definitely drive and finish with his left hand. Very good ball handler with his left hand. But just an extremely fun player to play with, because if you're open, he's going to find you. With the number of shooters we got this year, I think that could be of great benefit to our team. And again, as I said, he was played in the finals one year, won a state championship at UAD, very well coached in high school, and that's going to aid to his progress being sped up a little bit like has to be. In Nick Ward, he was probably the surprise of the three, the lowest rated, or the four. He's the lowest rated of the bunch. I told Zebo last week when I talked to him on the phone that I got a clone to him, as I used to use the poor man's version of Magic was Denzel. Nick is a poor man's Zebo. He's came here, he's now already lost 23 pounds. He was a little heavier than he needed to be. He's left-handed. He has a couple things that you got to love about a kid, especially playing the Big Ten. He enjoys contact, he loves contact, and he seeks contact. And so that's a good combination to have. He has a great skill around the basket to score. He has vacuum hands and shoots a little better from the line than I thought he would. And the big key with him is keeping him out of foul trouble would be one, and I think get him in the best shape of his life since, when we recruited him, when you had Ben Carter and you had Gavin Schilling, you could think of him as one role, and now you got to think of him as a completely different role, but I think he's capable of filling that role. He was the surprise in September. We asked him to lose the weight starting the middle of the year. He's done an incredible job of that middle of the summer. And it's just going to be a matter of the ability to stay on the court physically and the ability to stay on the court with the new rules now where last year, those touch a guy, somewhere on the court is a foul. This year it's going to be, the emphasis is going to be on post play. So we're not going to be able to touch many people down there either. So that is a concern of mine, to be honest with you. We move into our sophomore class, and this is the guy that I think is going to be a pretty big key to the year. Can Kenny Goins, he'll stay healthy, but can he take the step that he had to take? He had some moments last year when he played extremely well. He's going to have to play a larger role. He's the guy that had 13 rebounds against a much bigger Louisville team. I felt one of the reasons we lost to Middle Tennessee State when he got hurt early in the game, and we just didn't have a matchup for the new modern day, center and four guards that most teams are playing now. He was not in the game to have a fair matchup. He had a near double-double against Purdue and West Lafayette in a game we come back and almost won. He plays bigger than his size, and he's gained some weight. He's up to 225, so shooting the ball pretty well. Kenny's going to be a big key. Very, very good defensively. Very smart kid, both academically and basketball-wise. I'm looking for him to take a major jump. Now, he did not get to work out a lot this summer because of his knee injury at the end of that season, but he's progressed pretty well in practice so far. We're taking it a little slow with him, but he's really done a great job. And McQuaid, he too had a double sports hernia. It's like we're injury U around here, but all non-basketball injuries just about, and that kind of states the case for McQuaid. But he's proven to be a clutch shooter. I was walking down here, and you walk by the area up there where we have those TVs playing in the hallway, and our Kansas game was on with him, and sure enough, the end of the game, he was in there. Then Kenny was in the game. Tom was in the game. Didi was in the game, and Denzel. So we had three of these guys that were playing now that were playing at the end of that game in crunch time. And if you remember, McQuaid hit some big shots. He's done that a lot this year. We've lost a lot of shooting from last year, and especially in Denzel and Bryn. I think we're going to gain a tremendous amount with some other guys, but mostly Matt McQuaid, I think, is going to be a key. The third sophomore, Kyle Arns, tough farm boy who is one of the better athletes on our team. But he is a very good shooter. He's got the bulldog mentality at 6'5". He'll play some four. We'll be moving him around. He'll be a pick and pop guy, strong enough to guard bigger people. But we think he too is going to take a big rise up. When you really look at what he's done so far, he's knocked down a lot of shots. He can go in and get rebounds. I think because of a couple of injuries, he's going to get an opportunity. So far, he's really, really taken advantage of it. Our juniors, Tum Tum is improved, shooting the ball better. He's got that extra gear that very few in the country have, and he's performed very well. He's done with the plantar fasciitis. More importantly, though, he provides a lot for us in the leadership role on this team. I've never, and I say never, had a guy. Draymond Green was right. When Tom was a freshman, he told me that summer, after spending the summer with him, not ever knowing him before, he said, "Tom, are you going to ever had a freshman captain?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, you should think about this kid." well, he's not a freshman anymore, he's a junior, but he might be one of the best leaders this program's ever had. He's one of the best recruiters. Anybody he touches, he's done an unbelievable job here, and that includes different sports. He's embraced the freshmen from day one and been a terrific mentor to them. He's really helped those guys. He's, as I said, personally shooting it better. He's healthy. He's always been a great defender. And I do think between him and Cassius, the point guard situation for us is very solid. Greg Roy is a walk-on here, joined us last year, and is a great athlete, and I think will help us some. And then with the seniors, Aaron Harris is, I think sacrificed a lot for us last year. Came in here a prolific scorer, and I don't know what he averaged last year. It's probably 9-10 points a game, down from 17, but his defense went up extremely in every way, shape, and form. He was a better defender. He was a better ball screen guy. At the end of the year, he's guarding the Mellow Trumbles of the world, gave us a chance to move Denzel around a little bit. When Denzel was out in those 4 or 5 games, he averaged 17-8 a game. So he really stepped his game in. He's put a lot of emphasis on his defense. Now it's time to put it back on his offense. We're going to need him to score, but we already knew he could score. What he's starting to do better is he's making better decisions. He's got balance to his game now. He's got an offensive and defensive part to it. And he, too, has grown up a lot. He's become he understands what it is, what the culture is here, what his role is, not just as a player, but as a recruiter and as a person. I've been very pleased with Aaron. I think an area that he has to really improve on, because maybe we're going to be a little smaller, is his rebounding, and we're going to ask him to do more rebounding. He's gained maybe 10 pounds, not enough. Just got one of those bodies that doesn't gain it. It wasn't through lack of work. Elvin Ellis had a great summer. He really committed to basketball. He improved his shooting. He's the only returner to play in more than 100 games at MSU. I can't honestly say that we've relied on him, but I think he's taken a game that he liked, and he's starting to make it a game he loves. He has experience. He has knowledge. He's a pretty smart kid. Can really, really shoot it. It's about making decisions and making a commitment to what he's got to get done will determine his playing time. In Schilling, obviously everyone knows about the release yesterday. I feel bad for Gavin. He's going to have surgery in the next week or so. We'll probably know more after that. It's really getting to a timetable right now, but it's not anything that's minor. It's not anything that's life-threatening. But I do feel bad for Gavin because he did have a great summer, and that's, last year he stubbed that toe in an exhibition game, and it cost him 8 weeks, and now he's got this. But his attitude's been great. I think he can be one of the great ball screen defenders in the whole country, which is very critical this day and age. Ben Carter is going to be out of action for a little more extended period of time, and unfortunately, we really enjoyed Ben, the small period of time we had him. A little better all-around player than I thought, kind of like a Goran Suton. He kind of had a high basketball IQ, could pass the ball, could defend bigger people, but at 6'8", 6'9", he was needed. And Matt Van Dyke will be our Kobe Williman of this year, both athletically and academically. Actually, he's a better athlete than Kobe. Not quite as big, but a guy we're going to need to rely on a little bit, especially in practice. And the last guy is Connor George, who's a redshirt from last year, so he's kind of in the freshman class. And if the rest of our guys changed as much in a year as Connor George changed his body fat, his shooting was always good, but his ball skills, I take my hat off to this kid. He's really made an incredible progress in a year. I didn't know if he'd be here after a year. But he's working his way in where, like Roy, they're going to be very helpful in practice right now, and then hopefully beyond. So I'm worn out telling you all about all these guys, so now I'll really get worn out and ask you to ask me questions.
Just wanted to go to Gavin a little bit. Obviously, you're not. Has a surgery been scheduled yet? And I know it happened Friday, so were you guys kind of waiting to see how it responded before?
Yeah, there's a little swelling in it. They can take X-rays, and the truth of it is, it's not great. I mean, if you look at what it could be a little more extended than we would like. But surgery is scheduled sometime next week. We haven't got an exact date yet. Some of it depends on, didn't balloon up, but they like to have, when they have surgery, I guess, very little swelling. So it's a problem. There's no other way to say it, but it's not, it's not like I said, we were going to play with 2 or 3 centers either.
Looking at your point guard position, how do you plan to manage those guys, and what's the key to who's on the court and winning time between those two guys?
Well, there's, it's kind of too early to say that, but I will say this. You have 2 opposite guys in some ways that get along very well together, and that's, I'm so impressed with the fact that Tom has taken Cassius under his wing like he has, when it could be a guy that could replace him, for God's sakes, but that's typical Tom. At the same time, I got one guy that can guard anybody. I'd say that there's a weakness of Cassius. That's what it would be. I got one guy that shoots okay from the line. I got one guy that I think could challenge for a Michigan State record as far as free throw shooting. Cassius, I think he misses one every week or so, but that's about it. He doesn't miss many free throws. What I've been impressed with Tom is he's come back on 100%. What I've been impressed with Cassius, he shoots it a lot better than I thought. Some of you saw him in high school, and you probably hardly ever saw him take a shot because he could always get to the hoop and finish. And all of a sudden, he's shooting the ball. I asked his dad at Midnight Madness, where did that come from? He said, well, he always had it. He just never used it. So I kind of got both. And I would think there's going to be more than a few times I'll play 2 point guards together. Cassius shoots it well enough where I think we can complement that, especially if teams are putting a lot of pressure on us and things. So too early to tell right now, but we really need to have an exhibition game to see a little bit where we are with different people. I mean, freshmen are going to look good today. Last night was a night where 3 of the 4 struggled, and that's the way it's always been with freshmen. But I will say this group has been the most special group of freshmen I've ever had here, as far as both talent, school, attitudes, wanting to get better, wanting to be coached. Been a fun group so far.
You've always talked about the mental side of the game not being something talked about. Aaron Harris told me this last week. I'd like to get your thoughts. He said, who cares if you can score 20 and give up 40 on defense? The biggest thing I had to learn is you can't be a great player if you don't embrace basketball on every end of the court. What's that speak to his mental maturity and his growth between the ears?
Well, I think that, Bob would have agreed that, he was interested in scoring, and to be a complete guard, you got to be able to pass some, you got to be able to score a lot, and you got to be able to defend a lot. Last year, he proved that in different ways. Those 4 or 5 games with Zell out, he proved he could still be a scorer. Just about the entire year, he worked to get better, and by the midway point of the Big Ten, he was voted our best defensive player for a reason. I'm sure there was a lot of guys at West Virginia that said, who? Is that a different guy? And understandably so. I'd be the first to tell you. But I think he's grown up a lot. As I said, he's shot the ball very well now. I think there's, pro teams, college or football, basketball, they always talk about a year or 2 in, the game slows down. You can see the game better. If I looked at Aaron, even last year, it was like, he didn't know what he should do, and I understood that. But now the game has slowed down for him, and he's really shot the ball well from range, too.
Hey, Tom, 4 years ago, at Media Day, in fact, you had a freshman coming in that you said could be the best passer here since Magic Johnson. I remember you saying that quote, and it was about Denzel Valentine. Today you said it about Josh Langford. How would you compare those two players?
Cassius Winston.
Cassius Winston, my apologies.
Yeah. You're forgiven. You know what? I stick to what I said. I believed it last year, and Denzel proved that a little bit. He, in a lot of ways, I think probably statistically, Scott Skiles or Marcus Taylor probably had more assists. But if you look at a guy that can control the game, I thought Denzel did a great job. Cassius has a completely different aura to him. I tell him every day right now the hardest part is he seems casual to me sometimes. I think he's got to pick up on that. But it's also part of his stick. It's part of who he is. It's not really casual. It's just his way of pace and changing speeds and doing things differently. He's definitely a guy, you tell him what he should have done, and it's like registers like in a computer. And, hey, I got you, coach. I know you got me, but you'll probably forget by tomorrow. No, I won't. And sure enough, he doesn't. He's an extremely coachable kid that I do think with the shooters we have around, with Harris and Arns and Langford and McQuaid, and believe it or not, I've been still very impressed with Miles shooting it better than I thought. I think we're going to have a lot of guys that can fill it up. You play a Midnight Madness game, and we all know it means nothing, and we all know nobody guards anybody. Score 88 points in 20-minute running half was living proof of two things. One, we didn't guard anybody, and two, there were a lot of shots made. They weren't all layups. And if you go in the gym by yourself, it's still hard to score 88 points in 20 minutes. And it was a fun brand of basketball. We were moving the ball. We were unselfish. We were sharing it. And guys were making shots. And, we got to make sure we don't forget that, you can win some games that way. But if you win big games, you're going to have to be able to defend and rebound. The thing never changes. And that is going to be our biggest task this year. Freshmen very seldom can guard anybody. It's just nature of the beast. And depth will be a little concern inside, at least early on. So put those two things together, and we got our work cut out. But those four freshmen have to go from. We got one real good defender in Langford, a couple average defenders, and Nick started out a poor defender, but he's really made some progress, a lot. It's kind of as his weight went down, his game's gone up, and. When I called Zebo and told him that I got another one of him, I said, the problem is he's one of you offensively and he's one of you defensively. And if you could call him and give him a little help on that, I'd appreciate it. So hopefully we can make some strides in that area.
Do you recall a year where you've had this much turnover from pro to transfer to even now injury? And is Miles Bridges the most talented player you've had come in here as a freshman?
The first part of it is no, I can't think of a year where I've had, in 2002 when we lost Zach and JR and we lost Andre and Charlie and that group, we lost a lot. And we had a good recruiting class. I think, was that Torbert and Ellen Anderson in that group? And Hill, we only brought in 3. I must have been working on my UP math. Lose 7, bring in 3. That wasn't very good. But we, there's no question that, the big loss we had, of course, was Didi. And it was only a big loss because it was a little bit of a surprise. And I got to make sure I never get caught that way again. That was I don't know if it's my fault. It definitely wasn't his. It was just what happens nowadays in the way things go. As far as Miles, I hate to put that kind of pressure on him, but he's got shoulders 2X handles wide, so I should be able to put that kind of pressure on him. He's definitely right up there as one of them. He's different He's different. He's got that powerful explosiveness, like Jason Richardson, who was one of the best. Zach was one of the best. But Miles, I think, can play both ends. Miles has a high basketball IQ. He can do some Draymond things where he can make passes and plays. He's way better than any of those guys that I had with both hands. As I said, when you throw a football with your right hand and you shoot with your left hand, you write with your right hand, and you do other things with your left hand, he's either incredibly, ambidextrous or he's really screwed up, one of the two, but not knowing which hand to use. But I definitely ranks as one of the top couple I've ever had, and I think could play himself into, the best, because what's been real fun for me is in this day and age where the Twitter era, where everything's about me, with Miles Bridges, almost nothing's been about him. I watched him interviewing out in Washington. I listened to him talk to his teammates. I watch how he embraces Tom when he worried about his mother in the hurricane. Miles is a different kid than even the one I recruited, all in a positive way. Not that I had any idea. I've known him since he was in 7th grade, I think, but he's just handled everything so well. Now, it's before games, before any losses, before any problems, all those things. But at the same time, he's been special, and I appreciate having a blue-collar superstar, and that's what he is right now. Whether he plays himself into an elite player, that's what the next 6 months is for.
Tom, it's been pretty well documented and talked about the freshman class and leaning on them a lot. Not to say that you don't have eligible and good leaders in senior class, but how has that kind of changed how you're going to have to approach things, leaning on some more inexperienced guys to kind of help carry the load here?
I don't think it'll be a problem. It's one of my strengths. I have to have patience. Shows that the media is sleeping today. It's not one of my strengths. I'm going to have to learn patience and deal with patience. But I don't plan on changing a lot of things. I mean, these guys come in with bigger hype because they've earned it. Nobody gave these guys anything. They've earned what they've gotten. Like I said, I look at their families. I look at their coaches. I look at accomplishments they've had. They've had to fight their way through to earn what they've got, and they're not interested in being good players. They're interested in being great players. They're not interested in winning games. They're interested in winning a lot of games. So really, not a lot's going to change, except I think a lot more teaching by me. Where last year, it's funny, Costello came back yesterday, worked out a little bit, and I realized that, when you talk to, whether it's all of you or just people in the streets, and you talk about, everybody gets sick of probably hearing me talk about the players before, but Costello and Kobe did such a great job with Didi, and Denzel did such a great job with Aaron and some of the younger guys that hadn't played as much, and I'm missing that right now. I mean, Aaron is doing a better job, but some of those guys are trying to learn how to play themselves. So I think coaches, me in particular, we're going to have to spend more time. I mean, yesterday I just brought Miles in just to sit down and meet with him. Today I'm going to bring all 4 of them in just to sit down and talk to them about the things that maybe, as my line always goes, a player-coach team is better. Maybe this will finally, because I get whenever I say that, I get letters, people saying, well, God, why do you get paid so much? You don't even work. Well, I'm going to earn my money this year. I'm going to have to spend a little more time not coaching my seniors to coach them, but we're going to all have to, players, coaches, and the head coach. And, I'm kind of enjoying something different, a little change. I'm going to enjoy having a little pressure on me to try to bring along some young guys. I think that's going to be a positive thing, not a negative thing. Ready?
Let's liven it up. Indians or Cubs?
Well, let's see here. You know what? I like the Indians. I like what they've done, but you got to go with the Cubs. You got to get the curse out of the way. So I'm going with the Cubs. How about you, Fred?
I don't, yeah, Cubs. But I'm the guy that said Magic Johnson would never play in the NBA, so what do I know?
You did?
Yeah.
That doesn't surprise me, but go on.
Hey, have you, speaking of Magic, who you didn't coach, you've talked a lot about Miles. Have you ever had a freshman that I assume is going to be a leader like this? Even Draymond wasn't a leader right away, was he?
No, Draymond wasn't. I was too dumb to play him too early. He played, but what Draymond did is what I thought Ben Carter would do. I didn't know how much he'd play, but I thought he'd finish games. Draymond finished a lot of games by the end of the year. I don't know where Miles, he's got leadership qualities, but I can't ask him to do everything. I think Tom's going to do a phenomenal job in that area, but he will have to lead, but he will be a key player, and he'll have to be a key player on both ends. I can't hide him. Early on I could hide Denzel a little bit, or I could hide Bryn a little bit his junior year. I can't hide anybody this year, and a lot of them are young. They're all young if you really looked at it. Other than Aaron, everybody's pretty young that's going to be playing, whether it's a freshman, sophomore, or even a junior or two. So I think Miles will handle those things just well. He's going to have some ups and downs early, but man, I've enjoyed coaching him. He wants to learn. He doesn't think he knows everything, and at this day and age, that's a treat.
Tom, sticking with Miles over here. Other way. There we go.
Geez, sorry.
Sticking with Miles, being that you're kind of hurt now in the front court, do you envision a role very similar to what Brandon Dawson's role was when he was here, maybe being an undersized four? And if so, what's his rebounding and defense like?
I really don't, but I didn't when the year started, when we didn't have any injuries. I just thought this was going to be a year with two guards, two swings, and a post. And, we've gone small at times. The problem is when we've gone small, it's been a lot of times with a non-shooter or non-ball handler. If you ask me, Miles can play the 2, 3, or 4, if that's a numbering system. If you ask me, like everybody else, I think our thing has changed too, where you're not going to see a lot of double posts, right now in college basketball. And I see Miles playing a lot of different roles. What I've really enjoyed is we're using him in a lot of ball screens right now. His IQ is pretty good, but his strength, if he gets level with somebody, and his athletic ability, there has been a couple times, and I've been lucky enough to experience, whether it be Dawson or Shannon Brown or Hager, or even all the way back to Jason Richardson, some aha moments, in practice. And Miles gives you a couple of those aha moments almost each practice. So, where he'll play, I'll bet you in a couple of sets that we've put in, because we're going to try to look for him, he'll be at the point. And I mean that. He's going to be probably moved around a little bit, more like Irvin or Steve Smith and Denzel in a way, where we moved him a lot of different places, a little different than BJ.
Coach in the back. With what's going on currently with the football team, does that make you appreciate what you've been able to accomplish here that much more? And does that kind of become a talking point with some of your guys earlier that, like Coach D'Antonio said, the climb up is really hard, but the fall can be fast?
Yeah, you don't want to be falling. The climb up is hard and staying there is hard, but I look at football every day. I watch it every day. I look at it every day. I study it every day. I study ours. I study other programs. I think that's one of the reasons I embrace the sport is I learn from it. And there's so many things that I could talk about with football, and I've talked to Coach D more than a couple times in the last week and a half, and it's what I said to you earlier too. There's a lot of reasons. Injuries can play a part. guys leaving. You lose certain players. You don't think of them as good. I'm watching Costello work out with our guys a little bit, and I said, kid's pretty good. He said, well, Coach, last year you thought I was a piece of, whatever. And I said, that's kind of the way it goes, and I think that's what every sport learns, and you go through it. But I think the biggest thing that you learn that is a little different nowadays is, let's face it, guys, when you're in a situation where you're having success, if you don't have it, we used to worry about the media piling on. I really don't worry about you guys piling on. I know all of you. You all been fair to me through good, bad, and indifferent. And I think it's the way it is there. But there's just so much more that can get to a kid now. And losing becomes, you lose a couple games and the world caves in, and it's just more well-known now, meaning for the players. And that's what I've talked to my guys about, because, hey, we could be pretty good. I'm not going to make any predictions early, but we could be, I think, real good. And we could lose some games early. Could lose a lot of games early, just the way it is. And we've taken on something that few have tried to take on. It's going to be a memory maker. One of these days, I keep saying it's going to be a bad memory, but for the most part, all these memory-making events I've been in and all these games that we've played in, it has always turned out to benefit Michigan State, our basketball program, and our players. And that's really all I care about. And I think in football, I have all the faith in the world. I told him, Coach D is a funny guy. I mean, we're all great at giving other people advice. I mean, we're all great at giving other people advice. And but he gave me some advice last year when we lost 3 out of 4, whatever we did, and it was stay the course. You've built something here that's solid as a rock, and don't let a few bumps in the road change what you built, how you do it. You got to make your adjustments. You got to figure it out. But and the other day I told him, what you got to do. You win one more game, and you've won. As I said, you've averaged 9 wins a season in the last 9 or 10 years. I mean, I've been here through all of them, and I've been here through the 20 years before that, and it's never been done. So I told him, stay the course. I don't think he was as receptive to that, taking advice as giving advice. But I wouldn't be any different than him. I mean, that's what we do. But the only thing I've learned is to just make sure that, we keep our group close. And when we go through tough times, we realize that we're the only ones that know really what's going on, and fight through it. And honestly, am I disappointed or bummed out for them? Well, of course. Do I lay in bed and say, oh, geez, time to tear down the football stadium or something like some people do? Hell no. They're going to be just fine because he's got a hell of a base. He's got a hell of a first floor. You just continue to build on that, and that's what I'm going to do. And, I've had some lows too. The one thing I will say that I am concerned about, I'm concerned in basketball that the tournament has become the only thing out there. I'm concerned in football that, boy, when you only have 4 teams in, and I'm not lobbying for something. I'm not the czar of football by any means, but I think people do not know how to handle a couple losses from anybody. Forget Michigan State. Because as much as I love the playoff system, I think when you're looking at losing 1 game, 2 max, and everybody thinks the season's over, I don't think that's good for college football. So, not worried about Coach D. Appreciate him, care about him, support him, and yet he's got big boy shoes. He's built it. He said he watched what we did. He one-upped me. And his last couple of years have been something short of miraculous. And that will continue. You need to get on track a little bit. Win a game. When you win a game, things start moving up.
Coach, over here, to your left. There. Not far as back as Rico, but...
Thank God. You need glasses to see Rico.
Kind of along those lines, the way last year ended, in the tournament, how has that affected both yourself and the team the last 7 months? And then also, and kind of piggyback on the D'Antonio, what's your relationship like with him? How important is it to you?
Well, the first part is been a bizarre year. You know, I said almost to the day. If you can start with my father, and you can go to Denzel, and you can go to the winning streak, and you can go to the Big Ten tournament win, and you can go to the NCAA loss, and you can go to a week later getting invited to be in the Hall of Fame. And I mean, I'm a roller coaster guy, but I should get a free pass to those great roller coasters the way my year has been. And you know, and then you look at how do you learn from that, you know? The only thing I learned from that is I learned that I made a mistake, nobody else. I made the mistake. This year, if we get down 12-0, there'll be a timeout called. And I mean that sincerely. I think I had so much faith in my team that I forgot that there's another team that is getting energy from those threes going in, and the lead going to 8, to 11, to 12, to 15. And finally, the Hall of Fame coach called a timeout a little late. I think that was one thing, you know, that I learned. Don't just have faith in your team. Appreciate that another team can live off some of the things they do. I have no regrets, and I mean no regrets. And I said it after, and I said it 6 months later, and I'll say it 8 months later. I have no regrets about the preparation, the focus of our guys or anything. I have a lot of respect for what Middle Tennessee State did as far as making shots. And that would be the second thing I learned. The timeout would be first. The second thing would be defense does win championships. And if there's one thing that let us down, nobody ever shot what they shot from the 2 and 3 against us. Even when we were so bad, you know, it was scary back in the early days. Nobody ever shot that against us. And so it just kind of fuels my fire on why you got to be able to defend and rebound. And that part of it was good for me. But I think that, you know, by not calling a timeout, they got momentum beyond belief. And my guys did drop. Now, we bounced back and came back. I don't know if we went up one or tied, or we were right there. But I think that's what I learned. I learned that I got to do a little better job in appreciating both sides of the court, their side and my side, and not just have all this confidence in my guys that they're strong enough to handle it, they're veterans enough to handle it, all these things that were true. But in all honesty, you got a mid-major team, I guess if that's what they're called, and that's not insulting, that were coached and played to a level that they probably never played at. And hats off to them. So, and what was it?
Just your relationship with Mark D'Antoni.
Well, I don't like him as much anymore. I mean, he lost a couple games. I'm like the local fraternity, you know. I don't like him as much. No, it's great. I mean, you know, we talked a long time after the game, and then we spent some time together during the week. And you know, there's some of you guys have been with me since the beginning, and some of you guys know me better than my wife knows me, because you're with me during the times when things are really good or really bad. But I don't think anybody can ever appreciate what a coach goes through until you walked in their shoes. And in fact, that's what I'm learning about our society in general. You know, I don't pass judgment as much as I used to until I walked in somebody else's shoes. And you know, the advantage is the ball's round and his is oblong, but I've walked in his shoes and he's walked in my shoes. It's similar profession, similar situation, similar part dealing with injuries, similar part trying to get players to play, you know, maybe better than they even can. All the things, they're very similar. So it is extremely important, I think, that coaches at a university, if they can be, have great relationships with each other, because I think we can look at each other and give them help and give them support and give them knowledge or statements on what we went through and yet understand what they're going through. So I've always had great relationships with a lot of coaches around here. I don't know, because Mark Hollis was kind enough to let me be a small part of the process. I pulled for Mark D'Antonio, I guess, as hard as anybody, and he's given me so much credit. And like I said, if you look at football and you look at basketball, you look at what they've accomplished so far, and you look what we've accomplished, they've one-upped us. You know, they've changed the program that is harder to change in a shorter period of time, and so we're going to remain good friends. We're going to remain. You know, I'm sure there's times he questioned me. I sat with Judd for 13, 12 years, whatever it was, and I used to ask him on a regular Monday, you know, well, why do you think you should call George and tell him he should have passed on 3rd and 4 instead of run? But Judd had all the answers. I'm sure there's once in a while I have one, and once in a while he probably wished I would have shot a 3 instead of not. But for the most part, I'm almost making more excuses for him than he'll make, and I can do that because I can see it from the outside in, and he sees it from the inside out. He does the same thing. When I was struggling last year, I mean, he came over here on more than one occasion when Denzel went down, and you know, we're getting blown out by Iowa 2 out of 4 games. You know, things happen, and sure is good that I got an AD, a football coach, and a president, and a board that is supportive. And I think a lot of fans too. And trust me when I say I understand why everybody gets frustrated with losses. I just wish everybody understood all the things that went into them.
Tom, kind of another coaching question. This year, I'm over here.
You guys think this is easy to stand up here and pick you guys out.
Oh, those lights are bright. From an X's and O's standpoint this year, where does this rank when you have the injuries to the big men? Is it, and what is the challenge from that for you to kind of alter what you do?
You know, I know this is going to sound sick. I really do, but I'm kind of excited about it. I've looked at so many different things already, you know, and I'm trying to do is look at some different things we can do offensively to make up for some things, look at some things like we've always done because of the talent we have. You know, I want to make sure we're doing a few things to put that talent in the best position they can be in, but never, ever, ever, ever change the basement, you know. Never change that we better defend, we better rebound, we better be the toughest team out there. We better be one of the better running teams out there. Now, what we do with the X's and O's, just a dumb example, I spent 2 hours this morning talking about how we're going to cover ball screens because they're talking about now bigs can't, I'm not sure they can breathe this year. So we might have to cover ball screens differently because we don't have as much depth, number one, way they're going to call it, number two. So we got to make adjustments. But part of that, you know, coaches get like fans, get like media, you know, you keep doing the same thing. Every once in a while you get smacked in the face and you got to change it. You got to look it up. It's kind of been longer meetings with my staff. It's been, you know, more agitated meetings because I'm looking for some answers on what different guys have done in different places. I'm having my guys call different places. It's kind of fun, you know. It really has been interesting. And that was before anybody got hurt, just because I think we have a different kind of team than we had in the last couple of years. And that's invigorating, to be honest. I'm not sure I'll feel that way if we get guys in foul trouble or problems, but I am enjoying this process because I got great guys to work with. That thing I talked about last year about the culture and about the guys, it hasn't dropped. That part hasn't dropped off an inch. A little bit of depth has, a little bit of experience has dropped off, but the other things haven't dropped off. So we're going to be able to make this into a very, very good basketball team.
Tom, what are your feelings, the new experimental rule coming into the Big Ten and the MAC during conference games where they allow in the final 2 minutes of the game and in overtime periods you can challenge whether a call is a charge or a block?
You know, I find it interesting if you're in that restricted line, you know, I don't know, we got 2 of them out there now, I guess. We might as well put a high school one out there and have 3 of them so it really can confuse the officials. But if you jump up in the air, it's supposed to be different than if you just stand. And if you jump up in the air and you're trying to block the shot, now it's not an automatic block because you're in the cylinder. That ought to be good for more injuries, if you ask me, you know, with people trying to jump up and do things. I think we're getting. I'm a big deal on this. I think we've gone way too far with all the rule changes and all this and that. I'm voting for one thing. I made it public 6 months ago. I'm making it public now. Let's go to NBA rules. Let's widen the lane. Let's widen the three-point line. You're not going to have as much contact under the basket. Let's move the ball at the end of the game, make it more exciting. That's what I'm going for. Then when you watch a game on TV, you're watching the same game. When you play a game, you don't have agents telling a kid, well, it's a different game. You know, it's more the same game. I think it would solidify a lot of problems. I don't know why we're trying to be different. You know, we got the women's line at one thing. We finally figured it out. We get the three-point lines the same. We got the block charge. We got 1 6 inches from the other one. I mean, is everybody's egos in the wrong place, or should we get everybody together and say, let's do what's right for the game of basketball, not the high school game, not the college game, not the pro game, so that eventually everybody wants to play at the next level. The high school kids want to play in college. The college kids want to play in the pros. So let's get them all on the same page, you know. So I struggle with that, you know. I mean, I struggled last year with the touch fouls. And everybody will say that the coaches adjusted. At the end of the year, it was called a lot different than it was at the beginning of the year. And we have all these guys falling out, and people aren't interested in the game, and you know, not interested in the free throw contest. You, me, that's the one thing I think we're all on the same page on. I struggle with that. So I don't know. The block charge doesn't bother me. I don't know how they're going to get it right. It's a bang bang play, whether you're looking at it or not. I watched the baseball play, even though I was pulling for the Cubs. It was as bang bang as you could get, and it was as hell. I could see it from here. We're 2,700 miles away, and I could have made that call from here. He was safe. He was safe. Okay, last one. Who's got it? Sean.
You mentioned you have a different team than the last couple of years. 3 years ago, you had a team you knew that was good enough to compete for a title, and last year's team ended up being that good. What about this year's team? What's the potential? And
well, the cool thing is, if I answered you honestly, and I'm gonna, I don't know. I don't know where we are right now. I do not know yet, because we're doing some different things with some different people. I do know this: we got a lot of really good parts and a lot of neat parts, and a lot of guys that are on a mission, and we got some older guys that were, I don't know if embarrassed is a good word, but hurt by the loss last year. And we got some coaches that are, and I'm one of them. And so it's going to be a year where I think everybody's going to probably work harder than they've ever worked. And what does that mean? For somebody will write that means we didn't work very hard last year. But it's just a little more unknown this year. It's a little more unknown. I don't know how freshmen are going to respond. You know, this is new territory. You know, if you're at Kentucky or Duke, you know, especially Kentucky, in all honesty, not Duke. Like this year, Duke's got #1 class in the country, but they got 4 veterans that played a lot of minutes. So, you know, very seldom there we left with, I don't know what's going to happen, but I could see us starting 4 freshmen sooner or later. That could happen. And that's not the norm at 98% of the schools. So it's a little bit of new territory, but what is fun is I got a lot of guys that want to learn. I got a staff that I think is invigorated by the fact that we're going to have to work a little harder. We don't have some seniors like Denzel or Matt that are Kobe that are explaining everything. We're going to have to spend a little more time. It's probably going to get us even closer to a few players. And we're going to have to coach a little different, that we're going to have to even teach more. That's pretty normal. And I think we're going to find out a lot in the first month, which might not be healthy for me. And but I guarantee you that first month, whichever way it goes, it's either going to be, wow, we're really good, or wow, we got a lot more work to do. But at least mine's not going to be phony or hidden. We're going to know where we are and what we got to do. And the beauty of basketball compared to our oblong sport is you get a chance to regroup from that and get better as the season goes on, and maybe make a run at something at the end. So I'm sure not giving you a politician's answer. I've watched 3 debates, and I don't care who you're for. It was an interesting experience for my 16-year-old son, who had to do a book report, or I shouldn't say a book, extra credit paper on it. And I said to myself, that's his first opportunity to view politics. And it gave me a great understanding why we have to be more patient with a lot of things, because just think how that kid's first look at politics is. I was just excited I didn't see the Kardashians on there. I mean, other than that, I thought, it's hard. And I think of some of our kids we get from different areas, and maybe everybody doesn't have the same opportunity. So that's kind of helped me a little bit. So I don't know, but let me close by saying this, get off on tangents with you guys, because I've known some of you for so long. I feel semi-comfortable with you. This is going to be a great year for me. And it's going to be a great year because it's going to give me a chance to kind of look at things a little differently and have to really teach. Some years you get away with teaching hard, and some years you got to go off the charts. This is going to be an off the charts year. We got to get a lot of young guys. I mean, our sophomores are young guys, and let's not get mixed up by a top recruiting class. Does not always mean that you're going to have the same kind of players as a Kentucky or Duke, but at the same time, these kids have earned their right to be ranked where they were ranked. That's in the top 5 classes. Now they have to perform like they're ranked, and I have to put them in a position to do that, and that'll be my job. And I'm going to take that job as serious as I can, have some fun. Hopefully you'll have some fun, and I look forward to seeing you. Enjoy them today. I hope they do a good job for you. All right? Thanks.